The Tuscan villa was a postcard come to life, a sprawling stone residence nestled among rolling hills thick with cypress trees and the silvery green olive groves. For Tom and Linda Patterson, a middle school teacher and an office manager, and their friends Mark and Jennifer Walsh, a retail manager and a nurse, it was supposed to be a 3-day escape from the relentless gray of a city winter. They had found the listing online, a price so low it felt like a mistake, but the allure of the photos had been impossible to resist. Their first day was a blissful haze exploring the Tuscan countryside, followed by wine and cheese on the villa's terrace as the sun set. They had planned to do the same on their second day, but while the others were enjoying coffee in the sun-drenched court tile, Linda had decided to explore the biblioteca. It was a dark, cool room, smelling of old paper and leather, with floor-to-ceiling shelves crammed with books. She ran her fingers along the spines, pulling down a few at random. One that caught her eye was a leather-bound journal. She flipped it open to find its pages were filled with strange, hand-drawn symbols, frantic, handwritten notes in Italian, and a scribbled phrase, "Specchio in Croatia," a mirror in Croatia. Tucked between the final pages was a thick, cream-colored envelope. Her heart gave a little flutter. She brought the journal and the envelope out to the court tile where the others were relaxing. "Look what I found," she said, her voice a hushed whisper. She showed them the journal, the strange symbols, and the notes about Croatia. Then she presented the envelope. It was sealed not with glue, but with a dollop of deep crimson wax, bearing a crest that looked like a stylized labyrinth. There was no name on it. "Maybe it's for a previous guest," Tom, ever the pragmatist, suggested. "We probably shouldn't open it." "Or maybe it's for us, we are guests after all," Mark countered, a familiar glint in his eye. He loved a good mystery. "The owner, Julian, seems like an eccentric guy. Maybe this is part of the experience, an adventure." They debated for a few minutes, the allure of the unknown warring with their better judgment. It was Mark's argument that won. "Come on, guys, we're on vacation after all. And what is a vacation without a little adventure?" With a shared look of conspiratorial excitement, Jennifer carefully broke the seal. Inside, the elegant, looping calligraphy announced the game. The note read, "Welcome, fortunate guests, to a game of wits and will. This villa is more than stone and mortar. It is a puzzle box of history and secrets. For those with clever minds and adventurous hearts, a prize of untold value awaits. Follow the path we have laid and solve the riddles to reveal the ultimate prize." A wave of excitement washed over them. "A puzzle," Jennifer said, her eyes alight. "But what about our plans?" Tom asked, ever the voice of reason. "We were going to drive to Siena today. We only have one full day left." "Siena will still be there tomorrow," Mark said, already caught up in the fantasy. "How often do you get a chance to do something like this? We have to do it." Linda and Jennifer both eagerly agreed. The lure of the game was far stronger than any generic tourist plans. Their plans to see Tuscany forgotten, they turned their attention to the first clue, written on the same heavy cardstock. "In the cantina deep, a great heart waits. Pull it down and open the gates." "The cantina, that's the basement, I think," Tom said. They searched the front entryway and found the door to the cantina tucked away beneath the main staircase, a heavy oak door with an ancient iron ring. The hinges creaked open, releasing a gust of cool, musty air. The staircase was steep and winding, stretching out of sight into the darkness below. Linda pointed to the wall just next to the door. "Look, a torch. Does anyone have a lighter?" After a round of no's from the group, a frantic search ensued. A short while later, they had regathered at the stairwell, matchbook in hand. Linda struck a match and lit the torch, bathing the staircase in dancing light. The air below was thick and tasted of iron. The cantina was a cavern of arched stone ceilings and the light from the flames reflected by the thin film of moisture on the floor. In the center of the room was the water wheel, a modest-sized machine of stone, wood, and rusted iron. A complex system of pipes and conduits snaked from it, disappearing into the stone walls. Embedded in the wall beside it was a lever. Mark, ever the man of action, grabbed it and pulled. The lever didn't budge. It was rusted shut. "Give me a hand," he motioned for Tom to join him. Together, they put their weight into it. With a deep, protesting clunk, the lever moved down, and the great wheel began to turn. Water that had been diverted from some unseen underground spring began to rush through the channels, and the great wheel began to turn, its rhythmic groaning filling the air. As it moved, one of the iron pipes leading out of the cantina began to glow slightly blue. Where the pipe met the wall, a small stone panel slid away, revealing the number 7 deeply carved into the wall. Tucked into the new cavity was the second clue. Where the first pipe ends, a new task starts. Divert the flow to play its part. They followed the glowing pipe out of the cantina, the hum a tangible presence beneath their feet. It led them across the sun-drenched lawn, past a garden of fragrant lavender bushes, to a small, windowless pump house built of the same stone as the villa. Inside, the air was hot and smelled of oil and rust. The pipe connected to a complex junction of 3 large cast-iron valves, their wheels painted in faded primary colors. A water-stained diagram on the wall showed they needed to be turned in a specific sequence. "Okay, ready?" Jennifer asked, her finger tracing the faded lines. "Mark, red valve, half-turn clockwise. Tom, blue valve, a full turn the other way. We have to do it at the same time." The wheels were stiff but moved with a concerted effort. Mark took one, Tom the other. "On 3, Mark grunted. 1, 2, 3. The men put their shoulders into it, the old metal screaming in protest. "It's moving," Tom said through gritted teeth. With a final, coordinated turn, they heard a loud whoosh of pressurized air, and a powerful jet of water erupted from the dormant, moss-covered fountain in the core tile. On the main pressure gauge, a beautiful piece of antique brass and glass, the needle swung up and stopped on a single red-painted number, 3. A second iron pipe, leading from the pump house to the main villa, began to glow blue. This time, they found the third clue tucked beneath the diagram. Find 4 rods of copper bright. In the Sala Grande, connect the light. A quick search of the pump house revealed 4 decorative copper rods tarnished with age. They followed the glowing pipe to where it entered the Sala Grande of the main house. The hall was magnificent, with a soaring ceiling that let in shafts of afternoon light and a beautiful marble floor that echoed their footsteps. The pipe ended at an ornate bronze panel on the wall, a masterpiece of Art Nouveau metalwork depicting intertwined vines and flowers and a glowing sun with 4 empty rays. "Connect the light," Jennifer mused, sliding the first rod into place. It clicked in with a satisfying weight. When the last rod was seated, all 4 began to glow with a faint blue light. In the center of the bronze panel, a single digit, 9, is illuminated with the same blue light. The energy seemed to flow from the rods into a final, thick conduit that ran out of the hall across the cotile and ended at the P9, which was locked by a modern security keypad lock. The fourth and final clue was a set of 4 riddles engraved on the bronze panel. "Okay, team, let's huddle up," Jennifer said, her voice echoing slightly in the vast hall. She pointed to the first riddle engraved on the panel. "I hold the world's wisdom, but I am not alive. My face is plain, but my colored backs hold the key you seek." "The journal?" Mark suggested jokingly. "The books," Tom said suddenly. "The books in the biblioteca. They have colored backs, tons of them. That's the world's wisdom." "He's right," Tom agreed. "It's got to be the library." "Okay, one down," Mark said, moving to the second riddle. "I I am an empty stage until the clock strikes. My purpose is to share, though often filled with likes and dislikes. Look down where the spoon and fork must stand, for the perfect arrangement gives the next command. An empty stage, the living room for watching TV, Linda guessed. But it says, look down where the spoon and fork must stand, Tom pointed out. That has to be the dining room, an empty stage for dinner. Good catch, Jennifer said, nodding. Okay, third one. I am the quiet twin where daytime's burden is shed. Here, two objects should mirror each other, right beside the head. Find the deliberate fault, the missing half you lack to discover the true path that brings you back. Who wrote this? Fucking Shakespeare? Tom said with a chuckle. The master bedroom, Mark said, ignoring him. Daytime's burden is shed, that's sleep, and two objects should mirror, the bedside tables or pillows. It fits, Tom said. So, biblioteca, dining room, master bedroom. That leaves the last one. He pointed to the final riddle. I wear my importance high above the floor. I am meant for crowds, though I need just one roar. Go to my heart, the place where all eyes meet. He looked around the vast hall. Well, meant for crowds and great open space. It has to be this room, the Sala Grande. But what about the rest of it? One roar, high above the floor? And where's the candle? Linda asked, her eyes scanning the empty center of the room. Let's knock out the other rooms first. We can come back to this one, Mark suggested. They found the first three candles easily. One was on the mantelpiece in the biblioteca, another on the long table in the dining room, and a third on a nightstand in the master bedroom. But the candle for the Sala Grande proved elusive. The riddle said, go to my heart, the place where all eyes meet. But the center of the room was empty. They searched for hours, their initial excitement giving way to frustration as the sun began to set on their second day. The blue light from the sconces now cast long, distorted shadows across the marble floor. I give up, Mark said finally. It's not here. We've looked everywhere. Maybe it really was from a previous booking. They retreated to the terrace with several bottles of wine, the unsolved riddle hanging over them. As darkness fell, they watched the fireflies begin to dance over the olive groves. I wear my importance high above the floor, Linda murmured, swirling the wine in her 12th glass and staring up at the stars. We've been looking on the floor, in the walls. But what if... Tom followed her gaze upward to the starry sky. The chandelier, he finished her question. It's the center of the room where all eyes meet, and it's high above the floor. A jolt of energy shot through the group. They rushed back into the Sala Grande, their eyes fixed on the enormous, multi-tiered crystal chandelier. A quick search revealed a small winch on the wall behind a tapestry. Working together, they slowly lowered the massive fixture. There, nestled in the very center, hidden among the crystal pendants, was the final candle. With trembling hands, Jennifer lit it. As its flame ignited, a small drawer at the base of the bronze panel popped open. Linda heard the sound and jogged over to see what was inside. She found a small, rolled-up parchment with the number 1 and a final message. The path is lit, the code is scored. Seek the contadino for your final reward. 7391, Linda recited, her voice trembling with excitement. That's the code. What's a contadino, though? Asked Jennifer. Oh, I remember this from my high school Italian class. Contadino is, a peasant or farmer. I bet it's the phenile, interjected Tom. They rushed to the phenile. It stood apart from the house, a hulking silhouette against the moonlit sky. Next to the heavy weathered doors was a modern keypad, glowing with the same blue light. Jennifer's hand shook as she punched in the 4 digits. The keypad beeped affirmatively, and with a soft thump, the lock retracted, and the heavy barn door slid open on silent, well-oiled tracks. The air that drifted out was warm and humid, smelling of cedar and eucalyptus. As they entered, soft, ambient lights flickered on, revealing not a dusty barn, but a stunning, modern spa. The walls were lined with smooth, dark wood. The floor was polished concrete, and in the center of the room, a large, circular hot tub, built of black stone, steamed gently. A mini fridge hummed to life, its door swinging open to reveal chilled champagne and crystal flutes. "Oh my God," Linda breathed. "This is incredible." "This is the prize?" Mark said, grinning ear to ear. "A private spa? This is 12 out of 10. We absolutely crushed this game." They didn't hesitate. They popped the champagne, changed into their swimsuits, and slid into the hot tub's warm, bubbling water. For a while, they just soaked, sipping champagne and laughing, recounting the day's adventure. The stress of the final difficult riddle melted away in the heat. It was Mark who noticed it first. "Hey, do you guys see something over there?" he asked, pointing towards the far end of the phenile, just beyond the edge of the ambient light. "Yeah, but not very well," Linda said, squinting. "Wonder why it's not lit up." "Oh, maybe there's more to the game," Jennifer chirped excitedly. Curiosity piqued, they climbed out of the hot tub, wrapping themselves in the plush robes. Mark led the way. As he stepped within a few feet of the shadowy object, a new set of spotlights flared to life, illuminating a stone pedestal. On it sat a large, ornate wooden chest bound by a heavy black iron band with 4 keyholes inset. "What's that?" Jennifer asked, walking toward it. "I guess the game's not over yet," Tom said, a grin spreading across his face. "We need to find the keys." They split up to search the spa. The space was larger than it first appeared. Beyond the main area with the hot tub, they found a small, elegant changing room with a large mirror and marble counters. Adjacent to that was the sauna, its cedar walls radiating a dry, intense heat. The lounge area was stocked with fresh towels and bottled water. And at the far end, past a row of decorative plants, was a dark, unfinished storage area filled with old furniture and dusty boxes. It didn't take them long to find the keys. Mark saw the first one hanging on a hook behind the heater in the sauna. Jennifer discovered the second tucked into the pocket of a plush robe in the lounge. Tom found the third resting on an underwater light fixture in the hot tub. And Linda, after a brief search, found the final key on the counter in the changing room, right in front of the large mirror. They gathered back at the chest, triumphant, keys in hand. Their earlier giddiness returned, mixed with a fresh surge of adrenaline. This was it, the final prize. "Well," Mark said, setting his flute down, "let's see what we really won." With a collective nod, they inserted the keys into the 4 locks and turned them in unison. The locks released with a thunk as the band fell to the floor. Slowly, Jennifer lifted the heavy lid. The first thing that hit them was the smell. Not just the musty scent of old wood, but a cloying, sweet odor of decay and damp earth. They peered inside, but it was empty, filled with a profound, absorbing darkness that seemed to drink the soft spa light, a void that felt ancient and hungry. The laughter died in their throats. The warm, cedar-scented air turned instantly cold, raising goosebumps on their arms. The ambient lights began to flicker and buzz erratically. One by one, they went out, plunging the spa into a suffocating blackness. And then, from the entrance, came a deafening boom as the heavy barn door slammed shut. The darkness was oppressive, a physical presence that smothered sound and stole the air from their lungs. For a heartbeat, there was only stunned silence. "Okay, very funny," Jennifer said, her voice trembling slightly. "That felt different," Linda whispered. "It's likely a power failure," Tom said, his voice a calm, rational anchor in the dark. "It's an old villa. All this luxury probably blew a fuse. Mark, can you check the door? I'll see if I can find a breaker box in here. Yeah, you're probably right. Another level to the game would be a bit much, Mark said, his voice already moving away. They heard his footsteps, then the sound of the heavy iron handle rattling uselessly. It's stuck. What do you mean, stuck? Tom called out. I mean, it won't budge. It feels like it's barred from the outside, Mark yelled back, his voice tight with rising panic. He slammed his shoulder against the wood, the impact a dull thud in the oppressive silence. I'm going to find something to pry it open. Look around for a crowbar or something. The group, now genuinely scared, began to search. Mark moved toward the right corner of the room, where he found a heavy-duty tire iron left near some old shelving in the storage area. Got something, he shouted as he raced back to the door. He wedged the tip of the tire iron into the seam of the door and began to heave. At first, there was no reaction, but after a few tries, the wood began groaning in protest. It's moving. I think I can get this. He took a few steps back, braced himself, and slammed his shoulder into the tire iron. The impact sent a deep, shuddering vibration through the entire phenile. High above him, on the dusty second-floor loft, a massive, forgotten wooden crate shifted. Again, Tom shouted, the sounds of the wood giving way having resounded throughout the room. Mark slammed into the tire iron again. Boom! The vibration was even stronger this time. Above, the crate slid forward, its front edge now hanging precariously over the loft's edge. One more time, Mark yelled, sweat beading on his forehead. It's gonna give! He took another running start and threw his entire body weight into the tire iron. Crack! The door jamb splintered, but the door stayed in place and immobile. Mark stood, looking at the shattered jamb, his chest heaving from the exertion, a look of genuine puzzlement on his face, when the massive wooden crate suddenly crashed down on him with the force of a wrecking ball. The moments immediately following the crash were dead silent, the entire group unconsciously holding their breath in shock. The image was too horrific, too impossible to process. Tom, Jennifer, and Linda rushed over to the door. Tom swept his flashlight beam over the mountain of shattered wood, lighting a single mangled hand protruding from the wreckage. It twitched once as a dark, viscous pool of blood began to spread rapidly from beneath the debris. A sound of pure, animalistic grief shattered the silence as a wave of agony washed over Jennifer, breaking her shock. "Mark!" she shrieked, scrambling toward the wreckage, but in her grief and haste, she didn't watch her steps and stepped into the pooling blood, her foot losing traction and sending her sprawling into the red liquid. She picked herself up into a sitting position and began to wail uncontrollably when she realized she was covered in her lover's blood. Oh my God, Linda chanted as she rocked and hugged herself, her eyes wide and unblinking. Tom's mind struggled to process the impossible and reacted on instinct. He lurched forward, his hands were shaking uncontrollably. "Call an ambulance," he yelled, his voice cracking. "Somebody call 112. His own shock causing him to forget he was holding his phone momentarily, the screen's harsh light illuminating his pale, sweat-slicked face for a second before his mind re-engaged and he began clumsily stabbing at the app icons. Come on. A beat of silence, then another. Tom stared at the top of his phone's screen. No service. His blood ran cold. "I've got no signal," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Linda mechanically pulled out her phone and replied in a flat, numb voice. "Me neither." "The Wi-Fi," Tom said, an injection of hope in his voice. "The Wi-Fi. We can use that to make a call." He looked from Linda's pale, numb face to Jennifer, who was still crumpled on the floor, covered in her husband's blood and shaking with silent sobs. He knew in that moment they were in no condition to help. He was on his own. "Linda," he said, his voice firm but gentle, "help me get her up." Together, they managed to get Jennifer to her feet. She was limp, a dead weight of grief. "Look at me," Tom said to Linda. "Take her to the hot tub. Get her cleaned up and stay over there. I'll find the router." Linda, looking from Tom's determined face to Jennifer's broken form, slowly nodded. She wrapped an arm around Jennifer and began guiding her slowly toward the hot tub area, leaving Tom alone with the silent carnage. Tom watched them go and took a deep, steadying breath before turning his phone's flashlight towards the closest wall. He returned to the storage area, his light dancing over dusty boxes and sheet-covered furniture. As he turned, he caught a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision. He whipped his head around, his heart hammering against his ribs, but saw only a stack of old paintings, their static faces staring back at him. He shook his head, trying to clear it. "It's just the stress," he told himself. "My eyes are playing tricks on me." He found a ladder leading up to the loft of the finial, and with a stealing breath, he climbed up. The loft was somehow even darker, the air seeming to have a weighted quality that made his breathing labored. He swept his light across the space, illuminating a jumble of forgotten treasures and junk, and then he saw it. Tucked away in a corner, near a complex-looking junction of thick electrical conduits, was a small, metal box with a single blinking green light, the router. "I found it," he yelled, his voice a mixture of relief and triumph. "I found the router." At the hot tub, Linda and Jennifer both heard Tom's triumphant shout. A wave of relief washed over Linda. "He found it," she said, her voice trembling with a fragile, newfound hope. "See, Jen, it's going to be okay. Tom will get us out of here." She dipped a plush white towel into the warm water and began to gently wipe the drying blood from Jennifer's face and arms. Jennifer remained pliant, her eyes vacant, but the rigid terror in her body seemed to lessen just a fraction. Back in the loft, Tom scrambled over a pile of old crates, his eyes fixed on the blinking green light. As he reached for it, he felt a sudden, bone-deep chill, and the hairs on his arms stood on end. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a flicker of absolute blackness that seemed to suck the light out of the air. Just then, a low hum started from the conduits, and before he could pull his hand back, a thick, jagged bolt of blue-white electricity erupted from the junction box, slamming into his outstretched hand. The force was unimaginable, a physical blow that welded his flesh to the metal in a shower of sparks. His body went rigid, every muscle contracting at once in a tetanic spasm that arched his back violently. A strangled, inhuman sound was ripped from his throat as his vocal cords seized. The smell of ozone was instantly overpowered by the sickeningly sweet stench of cooking meat and burning hair. His skin blackened and split where the current entered, the flesh blistering and popping. A violent convulsion shook his entire frame, his limbs flailing wildly as if he were a marionette in the hands of a mad god. For a horrifying second, the electricity arced from his other hand to a nearby metal beam, creating a brilliant, terrible circuit with his body at the center. Then, with a final explosive crack, the energy threw him backwards. He was flung through the air like a rag doll, his body limp, and slammed into a wooden support beam with a wet, final thud. He slid to the floor, a smoking, ruined thing. His eyes melted from their sockets, and a thin, greasy smoke curled from his open mouth and nostrils. The deafening, explosive crack ripped through the barn, echoing from the second-floor loft, followed by a heavy, wet thud. The women froze, their eyes locking in a shared, unspoken terror. The silence that followed was deafening. "Tom?" Linda whispered, her voice barely audible. "Tom?" she called out, louder this time, her voice cracking with a new, rising panic. She looked at Jennifer, who was now staring in the direction of the loft. Linda's own courage, which had been so fragile just moments before, now hardened into a grim resolve. "Stay here," she said, her voice low and firm. "Don't move." I'll be right back." Linda slowly pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. She swallowed hard against a throat that was suddenly bone dry. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she pushed the fear down. Jennifer was depending on her. Tom was depending on her. She started moving, her small circle of light cutting a path through the thickening darkness, heading toward the location she thought she heard Tom shout. As she passed the tall, rickety shelves of the storage area, a loud clatter from above made her jump. A stack of heavy-looking boxes tipped and then tumbled down, crashing onto the floor directly in her path and throwing up a cloud of dust. The way was blocked. She was forced to take a detour, her light now sweeping past the lounge area and toward the glass-enclosed sauna. Suddenly, the sauna's interior lights flickered on, bathing the small wood-paneled room in a soft, warm glow. The space was already thick with steam, and through the swirling vapor she saw a figure. A man slumped on the bench. "Tom!" she cried out. All her fear, all her trepidation was instantly erased by a wave of pure, desperate joy. She sprinted the remaining distance and threw the heavy glass door open, rushing inside. "Tom, baby, are you okay?" she yelled, stepping into the wall of heat. The image of her husband flickered and dissolved into the swirling steam. A sudden, bone-chilling premonition washed over her. She spun around just as the heavy glass door slammed shut with the force of a guillotine. The sound of a lock clicked into place with absolute finality. Outside the glass, standing by the control panel, was Tom. But it wasn't Tom as she knew him. It was his corpse, its empty, dripping eye sockets fixed on her, as its blackened, smoking hand slowly, deliberately turned the temperature dial to the maximum setting. A strangled sob escaped her lips as she threw herself against the door, pounding on the thick, unyielding glass that was already hot to the touch. She glanced at the digital display next to the door, its red numbers a mocking beacon in the swirling steam. They were climbing with impossible speed. 180 degrees, 220 degrees, 270 degrees. The digits blurred as they ascended into a range that was no longer safe. Her first breath of the superheated steam was an agony she could never have imagined, a searing pain that felt like swallowing fire. It cooked the delicate tissues of her throat and lungs, and she began coughing and gagging, a thin pink froth bubbling on her lips. Her skin, already an angry, blotchy red, began to blister under the relentless assault of the wet, superheated air. The pain was a white-hot symphony of agony, 1,000 needles piercing every inch of her body at once. A final, desperate surge of adrenaline gave her strength. She began blindly searching for any way out, her palms searing as she slapped them against the seamless wooden walls, looking for a panel, a vent, anything. The air steam was so thick she could barely see through it now, and each breath was a fresh torment, scorching her throat and lungs until she could only manage shallow, ragged gasps. The edges of her vision began to darken as her body cooked from the inside out. She stumbled toward the glass door. As she drew near, the charred figure of her husband, who had been watching her motionlessly, glided to the other side of the glass. Now, inches away, Linda could see the full, gruesome details of its appearance. Tom's eyes were gone, his skin blackened and split. What stood before her was not the man she loved, but a grotesque mockery. The sight, combined with the unbearable heat and the searing pain, was too much. A silent, hopeless sob shook her body, and the tears that streamed from her eyes turned to steam the moment they touched her blistering cheeks. Her legs gave out. She collapsed to the floor in a heap, the darkness in her vision surging inwards to consume her. As she lay dying, her gaze met Tom's gaping, empty sockets, the ruined head tilted slowly to one side, and the blackened, lipless mouth stretched into something that could only be described as a smile. Linda tried to scream, but no sound came. Her vision collapsed to a single point of light, then went black. Her body gave one final, violent shudder, and then she was still. The only movement in the sauna was the relentless rise of the steam, curling around her lifeless form like a shroud. Jennifer remained by the hot tub. She had heard the boxes fall, a loud, startling crash, and then nothing. A profound, unnatural silence that felt heavier and more terrifying than any scream. Linda had gone to check on Tom, and now she was gone too. "Get up," she told herself, her voice a silent scream in her own mind. "Get up. You have to move. You have to find her." The thought of Linda alone and possibly hurt gave her a surge of adrenaline, and she pushed herself to move. She pulled out her phone and fumbled to turn on the flashlight, her fingers clumsy and slick with a mixture of water and sweat. Just as the beam clicked on, the barn's high-end sound system exploded to life at maximum volume. A wall of distorted, screeching static slammed into her, so loud and so sudden. She screamed, and her phone flew from her from grasp, arcing through the air before landing in the hot tub with a quiet plink. As the static roared, the barn's main lights flickered on, not the warm, inviting glow from before, but a harsh, sterile white that bleached all the color from the room. And in that light, she saw the massive main door, the one that had been barred and immovable, was now slightly ajar, a dark vertical slit of freedom in the wall of wood. Jennifer didn't question it. She just ran. She threw her shoulder against the heavy door, grunting with effort, and managed to widen the gap just enough to squeeze her body through. She stumbled out into the cool night air, the sound of the screeching static still ringing in her ears, and sprinted for the main villa. She burst through the unlocked front door, her breath coming in ragged, desperate gasps. The power was on. A soft, classical piece of music was playing. It was a scene of perfect, mocking normalcy. "A phone," she gasped, her eyes darting around the entryway. "I need a phone." She ran through the downstairs rooms, her bare feet slapping against the cool terracotta tiles. The living room, the dining room, and the small study. Finally, in the dark, wood-paneled biblioteca, she found a vintage rotary-style telephone sitting on the heavy oak desk. She lunged for it, her fingers closing around the heavy black receiver. She lifted it to her ear, her heart pounding with a desperate, fragile hope, but she was met by empty silence. As she stood there, clutching the dead receiver, a loud, violent crash erupted from the back of the villa. It sounded like every pot and pan in a kitchen being thrown to the floor at once. Her head snapped up, her grief and terror momentarily replaced by a flicker of desperate hope. "Linda?" She dropped the phone and ran to the large professional-grade kitchen, its stainless steel surfaces gleaming under the bright modern lighting. The room was empty, but it was in complete chaos. Cabinet doors hung open, and bowls and plates were spilled onto the floor. Bags of flour and sugar had been ripped open, their white contents dusting every surface like a fine layer of snow. Jars of spices were shattered, their fragrant contents mixing into a strange, cloying potpourri. "Linda?" Jennifer whispered, her voice trembling. She took a slow, hesitant step into the room and scanned the destruction, her eyes darting from one mess to the next. A slight movement caught her eye, and she looked at a pile of pans. In each gleaming surface, the same impossible nightmare was reflected. It was standing right behind her, so close she could feel a profound, unnatural coldness radiating from it, a void where warmth and life were supposed to be. Its skin was a waxy, translucent parchment, stretched so tight over its skeletal frame that she could see the dark, pulsing geography of veins beneath. Its limbs were impossibly long and thin, jointed in all the wrong places, and they moved with a constant, subtle series of micro-twitches and clicks, like a spider testing the strands of its web. The head was a smooth, elongated ovoid, like some deep-sea insect, and it lacked any feature save for two enormous almond-shaped pits of polished obsidian that drank the light and reflected her own terrified face back at her, twisted into a mask of silent, screaming horror. Its body was hairless and sexless, and adorned not with clothes, but with a lattice of intricate symbols carved directly into the parchment skin. They were not scars. They were fresh, raw, and they wept a thin, black, oily ichor that moved with a life of its own, slowly tracing the lines of the glyphs. A wave of primal, biological revulsion washed over her, so powerful it made her gag. The primal revulsion that had frozen Jennifer in place finally broke, and a raw, piercing scream was torn from her throat. She spun around, her bare feet slipping on the flour-dusted floor, and scrambled for the doorway. The entity didn't move. It simply tilted its elongated head, and the fine layer of flour and sugar that dusted every surface began to stir, rising from the floor and counters in a swirling, ghostly white cloud. Then, the knives lifted from the magnetic block on the counter. The entire set rose into the air and formed a swirling silver vortex in the center of the room, a tornado of polished, razor-sharp steel. The entity gestured, and she was lifted from her feet, suspended in the heart of the storm of blades. The first knife, a long, thin boning knife, plunged into her thigh, and she screamed, a wet, gurgling sound. Another buried itself in her shoulder. The knives struck her from all directions, a brutal, percussive assault of piercing steel. They tore through her stomach, her arms, her legs, each impact a fresh wave of agony. Finally, the heavy cleaver, which had been circling her like a patient shark, flew forward. It struck her square in the chest with a sound like a watermelon being split, burying itself to the hilt. Jennifer's body was then slammed against the far wall, and the knives that were stuck into her began to push through her body, impaling her to the wall. Her head lolled forward, her lifeblood pouring from a score of wounds, a final macabre masterpiece in the center of the chaos. 1,000 miles from the chaos, Julian Belrose sat in the cool, quiet darkness of his study. On one of his monitors, the 4 life sign readouts, which had been spiking and plunging in a frantic dance, now settled into 4 flat, serene lines. A faint, almost imperceptible smile played on his lips. He glanced at the secondary monitor, the live stream statistics. The viewer count had just ticked over to 3 million. A soft, pleasant ding echoed in the quiet of his study as another large donation rolled in. He picked up a sleek burner phone from his desk and dialed a number from memory. It rang twice before a clipped professional voice answered. 4 this time, Julian said, his voice calm and even. And I need recontainment. There was a pause on the other end. Julian listened, his eyes still on the flatlined monitors. Yes, he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. A Dybbuk box. He listened for another moment, then ended the call and disassembled the phone, throwing the pieces in the trash can under his desk. He turned his attention back to the live stream and typed a single final message into the chat box. Till next time, and ended the stream. Then he opened a new browser tab and navigated to a high-end boutique travel website. He found the listing for the Tuscan villa, its pictures showing a sun-drenched paradise of rolling hills and rustic charm. He clicked on the admin portal, entered his credentials, and marked the property as under maintenance. The listing vanished from the public site. Finally, he opened a Tor browser, its icon a small purple onion on his desktop. He navigated to a familiar address, reddit.com/r/nosleep. The page loaded a list of stories and he began to read, his eyes scanning the titles, looking for a spark of inspiration. He opened a fresh document on his computer and began to take notes, his fingers flying across the keyboard, already building the foundations of his next masterpiece.